What if the cheese slices in your fridge, the same ones you melt on a burger or serve to your kids, weren't as safe as you thought? Imagine opening a recall notice and realizing that your favorite brand is linked to plastic fragments, dangerous bacteria, or even chemicals already banned in other countries. The scary truth is that several household name cheese brands have been recalled, removed, or exposed for issues that could affect your health. So here's the big question: is your go-to cheese on the list? Welcome to BizWorld Explorer, the channel where we break down real consumer stories, corporate secrets, and the truths hiding in plain sight. If you want to stay ahead of food safety alerts and learn what really goes on behind the brands you trust, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Now, let's dive into the 6 famous cheese brands that faced recalls or removals, and find out if your kitchen might be at risk. Brand number 1. Kraft Singles. Few foods are as instantly recognizable as Kraft Singles. Those bright orange, perfectly square slices have been part of American kitchens for generations. Tucked into school lunchboxes, melted on burgers at summer cookouts, and layered inside gooey grilled cheese sandwiches. For many families, Kraft isn't just food, it's nostalgia. But behind that comforting image lies a more complicated and, in some cases, troubling reality. In 2023, Kraft issued a massive recall involving more than 80,000 cases of Kraft Singles. The problem? A malfunction in one of their wrapping machines caused thin strips of plastic film to remain stuck to the slices. That might sound small, but the risks were serious. Imagine preparing a sandwich and accidentally biting into a piece of plastic. Not only could that cause discomfort, but for children or elderly people, it could become a genuine hazard, leading to choking or internal injury. In fact, multiple consumers had already reported gagging or nearly choking before Kraft decided to pull the products off the shelves. Now, you might think, well, accidents happen, right? But Kraft Singles have faced criticism for much more than just one recall. The bigger controversy is about what's actually inside that familiar yellow wrapper. You may be surprised to learn that Kraft Singles aren't legally classified as cheese at all. Instead, the label reads pasteurized prepared cheese product. That phrasing isn't a marketing gimmick. It's a legal requirement, because what's inside isn't 100% cheese. Instead, it's a carefully engineered blend of milk proteins, whey, emulsifiers, artificial colors, and preservatives designed to melt smoothly and last longer on store shelves. Additives like yellow number 5 and yellow number 6, used to give Kraft that signature orange glow, have been the subject of health debates for years. These same dyes are either restricted or banned in many European countries due to concerns about links to hyperactivity in children and other health issues. Yet, in the US, they remain common ingredients in everyday foods, including Kraft Singles. And then there's the sodium content. A single Kraft slice contains more than 250 milligrams of salt. That might not seem like much at first, but think about how easily 2 or 3 slices can end up in one sandwich. For people with high blood pressure or heart concerns, those hidden doses of sodium can add up quickly. The emotional weight of this is hard to ignore. Kraft has spent decades positioning itself as a safe, family-friendly choice. It's marketed as affordable comfort food, tied to childhood memories and happy family traditions. But when a product with that kind of reputation ends up recalled for plastic contamination or criticized for containing controversial chemicals, it creates a sense of betrayal. Parents who thought they were giving their kids something harmless may start to wonder, what else don't we know? The good news is that there are healthier alternatives. Brands like Horizon Organic, Applegate, and Point Reyes Farmstead produce natural cheeses made from real ingredients, without synthetic dyes or chemical emulsifiers. Yes, they may be a little pricier than Kraft singles, but many families feel the extra cost is worth it for peace of mind and healthier eating. So here's the real question for you. After hearing all this, would you still eat Kraft singles? Or maybe you already stopped buying them? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to know if this brand is still in your fridge, or if you've already moved on to something better. Brand number 2. Velveeta has long marketed itself as liquid gold, that smooth, creamy block of cheese-like product that melts flawlessly into queso dips, mac and cheese, and casseroles. The commercials show smiling families gathered around bubbling pots of comfort food, with Velveeta acting as the magical ingredient that makes everything better. But when you peel back that shiny foil wrapper, the story isn't nearly as golden as the ads make it seem. Velveeta has been no stranger to recalls. Over the years, the brand has faced multiple safety scares that shook consumer trust. In one incident, Kraft Heinz had to recall microwavable Velveeta mac and cheese cups after metal fragments were discovered inside the product. Imagine feeding your child a quick dinner only to realize that sharp, dangerous pieces of metal could have been hidden in the cheese sauce. In another case, improper levels of preservatives were detected, creating a risk of spoilage and even bacterial growth. That's not just unappetizing, it's a serious health hazard. Nobody wants to sit down to comfort food only to find out it could cause foodborne illness. The problems don't stop with recalls. Just like Kraft singles, Velveeta isn't legally considered cheese. It's labeled as a pasteurized prepared cheese product. Translation: it's a mixture of whey protein concentrate, milk solids, emulsifiers, artificial coloring, and preservatives, carefully engineered to create that famously smooth melt. But at what cost? A single serving packs almost 400 milligrams of sodium. For someone dealing with high blood pressure or heart concerns, that's like sprinkling an entire salt shaker onto your meal without realizing it. Eat Velveeta often enough, and those numbers add up fast. Beyond the ingredient list, Velveeta has even been dragged into lawsuits. Kraft Heinz, its parent company, was accused of misleading advertising when they claimed their Velveeta mac and cheese was ready in under 4 minutes. Consumers pointed out that the actual cooking process often took longer. At first, this might sound like a small issue. After all, what's an extra minute or two? But it speaks to a bigger problem. A company more focused on clever marketing than on honesty or transparency with its customers. And then there's the hidden side of production. Reports have surfaced linking some of Kraft Heinz's dairy suppliers to troubling practices, overcrowded barns, reliance on hormones, and questionable animal welfare conditions. While the TV ads show happy families gathering around dinner tables, the reality behind the scenes can look far different. For many conscious consumers, this disconnect raises difficult questions about whether liquid gold is worth the ethical price. Of course, there are healthier and more natural alternatives. Brands like Tillamook, Belgioioso, and Cabot produce real cheeses that melt beautifully without relying on a cocktail of emulsifiers and dyes. These options often use higher quality milk, better farming practices, and fewer additives, giving you that same rich, melty texture without the baggage that comes with Velveeta. At the end of the day, Velveeta's image of creamy comfort food is mostly a triumph of marketing. The product itself is less about real cheese and more about engineering a cheese-like experience. Once you know the recalls, the chemical additives, and the lawsuits, liquid gold starts to look a lot more like fool's gold. So now I'll ask you, after learning all this, will you still keep Velveeta in your kitchen? Or maybe you already stopped using it long ago. Let me know in the comments. Do you still see Velveeta as comfort food? Or has this changed your view? Brand number 3. Great Value. Walmart. Walmart's Great Value brand is one of the most recognizable private labels in the US. It's designed to save families money. And for millions of shoppers, it feels like the smart choice. Why pay more for name brands when you can get a similar product for less? But when it comes to cheese, those savings sometimes come with hidden costs that most families never see until it's too late. Great Value cheeses have been linked to multiple recalls over the years. At one point, shredded mozzarella had to be pulled from shelves due to listeria contamination, a bacteria that can be especially dangerous for pregnant women and the elderly. In another case, cheddar cheese products were flagged for salmonella risks, and certain American singles were recalled because of undeclared allergens. Imagine serving dinner, thinking you're feeding your family something simple and safe, only to discover that what's on their plates could send them to the emergency room. Perhaps most alarming of all, inspectors once reported pasteurization failures in parts of Walmart's supply chain. That means the process designed to kill harmful bacteria wasn't done correctly, giving pathogens like listeria or E. coli the perfect chance to survive. When pasteurization fails, no amount of fancy packaging or low pricing can protect consumers from the risks. And then there's the issue of what's actually in the cheese itself. Independent lab testing has found that Great Value processed cheese often contains fillers and additives like sodium phosphate and calcium sulfate. If those names sound unfamiliar, here's the shocking part. These same ingredients are also found in construction materials, including plaster and drywall. While they're technically legal in US food production, many European countries have much stricter limits or outright bans on these kinds of additives. American shoppers often assume if something is on the shelf, it must be safe. But in reality, US regulations sometimes lag behind international standards. The supply chain adds another layer of concern. Walmart's relentless drive to keep prices as low as possible often puts enormous pressure on suppliers. Investigations have uncovered troubling stories of low-wage workers in freezing plants handling hazardous chemicals with little training or protective gear. Families at the checkout line see a cheap block of cheese, but what they don't see is the hidden human cost baked into those savings. The environmental impact is another part of the story. Industrial-scale dairy farms tied to Walmart's suppliers have been linked to massive manure runoff, contaminating rivers and groundwater in rural communities. In some areas, families can no longer rely on their tap water and have had to switch to bottled water just to stay safe. For those communities, the price of cheap cheese has been far higher than anything listed on a store shelf. Of course, alternatives do exist. Even in big box stores, you can find safer and higher quality cheeses from brands like Sargento, Organic Valley, and Cabot. These companies often rely on stricter testing and more transparent farming practices, and they don't pack their products with drywall-like additives. While they may cost a little more, they also come with greater peace of mind. So now let me ask you, knowing all this, would you still buy Walmart's Great Value cheese? Or maybe you were already avoiding it? Drop your answer in the comments. Do you think the savings are worth the risks? Or is it time to look for safer choices? Quick question before we move on. Have you spotted any of these cheese brands in your fridge? Drop a comment below and let us know. And if you're finding this video helpful, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe, so you won't miss the rest of the brands still to come. Brand number 4, Land O'Lakes. When you think of classic American dairy, chances are Land O'Lakes comes to mind. The brand has been around for over 100 years, building a reputation on its creamy butter and processed cheese slices. For generations, it's been a go-to staple in lunchboxes, sandwiches, and family dinners. On the surface, it carries an image of tradition, wholesomeness, and farmer pride. But when you peel back the label, the story isn't as perfect as the advertising makes it seem. Unlike some of its competitors, Land O'Lakes hasn't been at the center of massive nationwide cheese recalls. That's a point in its favor, but it doesn't mean the brand is spotless. Over the years, inspectors have raised red flags about food safety practices at different facilities. Even when recalls don't happen, the mention of unsanitary conditions is enough to make consumers uneasy. After all, cheese is something families eat daily, so any hint of risk feels like a betrayal of trust. The company's image also took a hit from cultural controversy. For decades, Land O'Lakes packaging featured the famous Butter Maiden, a Native American woman kneeling with a box of butter in her hands. Critics pointed out how it reduced indigenous culture to a marketing gimmick. After growing backlash, the company finally removed the mascot in 2020. While that decision was celebrated by some, many argued it came far too late. For others, the delay showed how unwilling Land O'Lakes was to change until public pressure forced their hand. Behind the glossy branding, deeper issues have surfaced on the production side. Investigations into supplier farms have uncovered concerning conditions. Cows tightly packed into barns with limited freedom, heavy reliance on artificial hormones to boost milk output, and reports of farm workers dealing with exhausting, sometimes unsafe working conditions. These findings clash sharply with the image of happy cows grazing in wide-open fields that consumers see in commercials. Environmental watchdog groups have also raised alarms. Land O'Lakes dairy operations have been linked to runoff of animal waste into rivers and lakes throughout the Midwest. This pollution has fueled algae blooms, poisoned fish, and even contaminated drinking water in nearby rural communities. For families living in those areas, the cost isn't just an environmental issue. It directly impacts their health and quality of life. Adding to the criticism are political and business decisions. As a farmer-owned cooperative, Land O'Lakes built its identity on community and sustainability. Yet the company has made political donations and supported policies that, critics argue, don't always align with that wholesome image. When consumers discover this kind of disconnect, it creates frustration, especially for shoppers who believed they were supporting an ethical, people-first company. So, while Land O'Lakes continues to occupy supermarket shelves and millions of fridges, the brand has cracks in its image that can't be ignored. For consumers seeking alternatives, brands like Organic Valley, Tillamook, or local artisanal cheeses are often seen as more transparent and committed to cleaner farming practices. But here's the real question for you. After hearing all this, would you still use Land O'Lakes products? Or were you already a loyal buyer before learning about these controversies? Brand number 5. Sargento has spent decades marketing itself as the real cheese people. Their commercials often show smiling Wisconsin families, rolling green pastures, and proud dairy traditions. The message is clear. Sargento wants you to believe they stand for purity, authenticity, and wholesome values. And for a long time, many families bought into that image without hesitation. But behind the reassuring branding, the company has faced problems that cut straight through its carefully crafted reputation. One of the biggest blows came in 2017. Sargento was forced to recall millions of packages of its shredded and sliced cheeses after listeria contamination was linked to one of its suppliers. Now, listeria isn't just a small issue. It's a dangerous bacteria that can lead to meningitis, miscarriages in pregnant women, and even death for those with weaker immune systems, like the elderly. When news of the recall spread, families were left wondering if the cheese sitting in their fridge would put their health at risk. For a company built on the promise of safety and tradition, this was a devastating crack in the image. Unfortunately, that wasn't the end of it. In 2024, Sargento found itself indirectly caught up in another contamination scare. One of their partner suppliers was linked to a new outbreak, and while not every Sargento product was affected, the headlines painted a different picture. Panic spread among shoppers, many of whom tossed out perfectly good cheese just to be safe. For families living paycheck to paycheck, throwing away food feels like betrayal. Trust, once broken, isn't easy to rebuild. The irony is hard to miss. Sargento has always marketed itself as the honest, real cheese alternative to overly processed brands. Yet the company stumbled into the same problems: food safety scares, questions about sourcing, and health risks hidden behind comforting packaging. Beyond contamination, nutritionists have flagged certain Sargento products for high sodium content. That might not sound alarming at first, but for older adults or anyone managing blood pressure, those hidden salt levels can have long-term consequences. And food safety isn't the only concern. Animal welfare activists have criticized parts of Sargento's supply chain for poor conditions on farms, ranging from cows confined to tight spaces to questionable feeding practices. Reports of labor issues within dairy operations also add another layer of discomfort. For consumers who thought they were voting with their wallet by choosing Sargento over big processed cheese brands, these revelations feel like a betrayal. All of this leaves shoppers asking if even the real cheese people can fall short. Who can you really trust? The good news is that there are alternatives. Brands like Cracker Barrel, Murray's, often sold in larger supermarkets, or local farmstead cheeses tend to have stronger commitments to food safety and more transparent supply chains. They might cost a little more, but for families prioritizing health and trust, the peace of mind is worth it. So here's the question for you. After learning all this, would you still buy Sargento products? Or were you already a regular buyer before hearing about these recalls and controversies? Brand number 6. Borden. For decades, Borden was a household name in American kitchens. With its smiling cow mascot, Elsie, the brand presented itself as a family-friendly symbol of comfort and tradition. Parents trusted it, kids loved it, and commercials made it feel like a warm piece of Americana. But behind that cheerful image, the reality of Borden cheese has been far less wholesome. In 2015, the company was forced to issue a recall of its fat-free and 2% American cheese slices. The reason? Pieces of plastic film were sticking to the slices. It might sound like a small oversight, but think about the risk. A distracted parent making sandwiches or an elderly person preparing a quick snack could easily miss the plastic. That thin strip could become a choking hazard, especially for kids or seniors. Even though no major injuries were reported, the mere thought was enough to shatter consumer confidence. And the problems don't stop there. Nutritionally, Borden's products are no better than other processed American cheeses. High sodium levels, artificial dyes, and chemical preservatives are standard across many of their slices. On the surface, the packaging may look like a safe and affordable option for families. But dig deeper, and you realize those hidden ingredients can add up over time, increasing risks of hypertension, heart disease, and other health complications. For households already managing medical conditions, every bite matters more than most people realize. Borden's corporate journey adds another layer of disappointment. Once considered a dairy giant, the company hit hard times, declared bankruptcy, and closed multiple plants. Those closures didn't just affect profits, They devastated communities. Workers were left jobless, families lost stable incomes, and entire towns felt the ripple effect. When Borden later re-emerged under new ownership, it didn't erase the damage done to the people who once built the brand from the ground up. For many, the comeback felt less like redemption and more like corporate survival at the expense of loyal workers. Even the famous mascot, Elsie the cow, has lost her charm for many shoppers. What once symbolized trust and comfort now feels like a mask covering uncomfortable truths. Investigations into dairy suppliers tied to large cheese brands, including Borden, have raised concerns about cramped barns, stressed animals, and cost-cutting practices that prioritize speed over quality. When you pair that with the human cost of plant closures and layoffs, Elsie's smile seems harder to believe. For families who grew up with Borden commercials and catchy jingles, learning all of this can feel like betrayal. The brand that once stood for tradition and reliability now represents corner-cutting, recalls, and broken promises. If you're looking for better options, there are plenty of alternatives worth trying. Brands like Belgioioso, Tillamook, and local dairy cooperatives often emphasize food safety, higher quality ingredients, and more transparent supply chains. They might cost a little more, but the peace of mind is worth the investment. So here's my question to you. After hearing about Borden's recalls, health risks, and controversies, would you still put this cheese on your table? Or were you already someone who bought Borden before learning all of this? So there you have it. 6 famous cheese brands: Kraft, Velveeta, Great Value, Land O'Lakes, Sargento, and Borden, all tied to recalls, controversies, or hidden dangers that most families never hear about until it's too late. Whether it's plastic fragments, dangerous bacteria, or chemicals banned elsewhere, these cases prove that even the biggest names in food aren't immune to serious safety issues. The takeaway is simple. Don't let nostalgia or marketing decide what goes on your table. Read labels, pay attention to recalls, and when possible, choose trusted alternatives that prioritize safety and quality over profit. This has been BizWorld Explorer, where we uncover the truths behind the brands you know. If you found this video eye-opening, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you never miss future updates. And tell us in the comments, which cheese brand do you trust the most? Or which one shocked you on this list? Stay safe, stay informed, and until next time, thanks for watching BizWorld Explorer.